Credo Voices, the podcast where we bring you inspiring stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Awele Okibo, the CEO of Credo Advisory.
Globally, the gender gap in labor force participation has remained at 30% since 1990, with men's participation around 80% and women's at 50%, according to UN Women.
There can be no sustainable development without gender equality.
Women are consistently underrepresented in industries like media and journalism, and in countries like Uganda, systemic barriers, such as limited education, financial constraints, and a male-dominated media landscape, make it even harder for young women to break in. But what if the right tools and training could change that? In this episode of Credo Voices, we sit down with Amina Mohamed, founder of Cameras for Girls, an initiative equipping young women with the skills, resources, and opportunities to succeed in the media industry. Amina's mission isn't just about employment, equity, ethical storytelling, and shifting narratives. By advancing Sustainable Development Goal 4, quality education, SDG 5, gender equality, and SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, she's transforming lives. Join us as we explore how Amina is not just giving women tools for storytelling and reporting. She's ensuring they have the power to use it.
Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast, Awele. Yes, my name is Amina Mohamed. I am Canadian. However, originally from Uganda. My family and I came to Canada in 1972 after then President Idi Amin had kicked out all the Indians with 90 days notice. I was 3 years old. But that journey would transform who I was and who I would become. We grew up without much, living in Canada. When we arrived, it was, oh my God, like November, so cold. My parents had been educated in England, but, winters in England and winters in Canada are two different sides of the coin. And so we were shocked at the cold. It wasn't a warm welcome as refugees. Canadians were not so happy to have refugees during economic downturn, right? So it was sort of cold all around. But we settled into Canada, and my family, we quickly became, the typical Canadian over time. But for me, now here's the funny part, I'm born in England. I lived in Uganda until I was 3, and if people as a child would say, "Where are you from?" I'd be like, "I was born in Uganda." And my mom say, No, you were born in England, but we are from Uganda. No, I'm Ugandan. And it was always something inside that just tied me to this country that I didn't even remember, but I just had such an affinity for. So after high school and college, I started working in film and television. It was completely by accident. I started in catering, moved into wardrobe. My last film was American Psycho. I was taking care of 1,000 extras. And then I moved into producing music videos and producing short films. My first film went to Toronto International Film Festival. It was amazing. I had an amazing career. And then I moved into documentary. And I won an award, like a fellowship under Hot Docs, one of the first ones that they launched. And that was my chance to go back to Uganda and tell the story of the Indians who were returning to claim their properties that had been taken under Idi Amin. I was following the story of my 2 uncles. So they had a 10-year journey on trying to claim what was theirs. And it was during that trip that my eyes were open to the inequity of women and girls. You grow up in Canada and you think that everybody has the same life as me. Everybody has the same opportunities, and it was far from it. So other than debilitating poverty, because the country had gone through so much since Idi Amin, it was the plight of women and girls that hit me the most. It was meeting young women who were telling me that at the age of 14, they were forced to get married. And by the time they were in their mid-20s, because they were not educated, they now had no career to afford money to educate their children. Or meeting families who are telling me that, well, yeah, we educate our boys, not our daughters, because they're supposed to be in the kitchen or they're supposed to be on the farm or taking care of their younger siblings. And I was shocked and dismayed. But I didn't know how to marry my current life to what I envisioned could be something until I left film and television. So after 15 years, I got married, and during that time, I was never home. And my husband gave me an ultimatum. Do you want to be a filmmaker? Do you want to be married? And I chose, to stay married because most of the people I was working with were divorced, on drugs from the long hours. And so I left and I flitted around for a few years doing different things until I landed in the financial sector. So everybody's like, a filmmaker to financial.
Yes.
But my dad was an accountant and my mom was an artist. So I jumped into mortgages. I did really well, making good money, earning awards, but something inside was missing, right? And at the 5-year mark, I sat down to write my mortgage broker exam. And I looked at the clock. I looked at my pen. I looked at the colleagues around the table. And I was like, what am I doing here? This is not the life I want. I have a higher purpose. I don't know what it is, but I'll find it. And hand to God, that night, I went home. And in my dreams, because I have insomnia, I came up with the idea to go back to Uganda and teach photography to young women. And I woke my husband up in the middle of the night. I said, Thomas, I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And he's like, oh, shit, here we go again. Because I could never settle on one thing. And he's like, yeah, good luck with that. And I stayed up that night making the business plan. And a year later, I was in Uganda for our first workshop.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. You've given me so much. I really want us to unpack.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, your journey, it's clear that it took you time to find your purpose, and that's fine. We need to kind of go through and try different things before we finally land on what our soul is now like at peace with, right? So you started Camera for Girls. I do a lot of work with women and girls, and the inequity, as you mentioned, is just stark across the world. So tell me, in evolving, your professional evolution, you're going back home and you're putting a camera in the hands of girls who some may not have had an opportunity to hold a camera. Let's unpack that. Tell me about, those few moments when you started. You landed in Uganda. How did you start it? How did it kick off?
Well, I started doing some research and I reached out to first organizations that were working or churches that were working with young girls and women who had been affected by Joseph Kony's child soldiers, making them child soldier, right? Joseph Kony was a famous, we can call him terrorist. And yet I was being told, well, there's no electricity and there's no internet. And if you give a girl a camera, she's going to sell it for food. And I was like, there goes that idea. Then a friend of mine, a Ugandan journalist, a male, said to me, Amina, you're going through this all wrong. You need to work with girls who are coming out of journalism and communication programs or have graduated but can't get work. And I'm like, what do they need me for? When they go to get work, they don't have crucial tools like a camera, which is a gender-based barrier to employment. So their employers are telling them, you must have a camera, you must own one, you must know how to use it to get the job, plus all the other skills that come with it, right? Storytelling, writing, research.
Yeah.
Guys didn't have the same requirements. They didn't even have to go to school. They could just get the job. And I was like, bingo. So what I started to do was sit down and say, okay, so here's the problem. Girls can't get jobs. So that's the problem I'm trying to solve, right? How am I going to solve that though? What does that take? That takes, they need a camera. What else they need? They're coming out of theory-based journalism programs. If you're in a theory-based program, you have no practical skills for job development or job placement. And so I worked my way backward rather than forward. And I looked at it and I said, okay, so fine. We're trying to get them into jobs, which gets them out of poverty, which meets gender equality targets, right? United Nations SDGs were our goal. I'll go back to that in a second. But so then we said, okay, so they need jobs. Okay, but what is missing? Well, they need to be better writers. They need to be learning even spelling and grammar. They need to learn business skills like, how do I build a resume? How do I build a business plan? How do I build a LinkedIn profile to network? Then they need to learn ethical storytelling. Now, at the beginning, I'll admit we were just doing storytelling. But the foray into ethical storytelling came about 2 years ago, and that's another story. But it's so essential not just to teach photography skills, which make them better storytellers because now they're visual.
Yes.
But it's also important to get them writing on paper stories that are going to be perfectly written, grammatically correct, structured properly.
If I could just stop here, I really want to hop on a point you're making around storytelling.
Yes.
And it reminds me of the quote by Chimamanda Adichie about the danger of a single narrative.
Right.
I mean, we don't tell our own stories.
And this is part of the issue, right? That's part of the issue is that African women or African men or Africans in general have been framed under the colonial lens.
Yeah.
And I was born under colonial, colonial rule had gone, right, by 10 years then. Uganda got independence in 1962, but my parents lived during those times. They were born in 1940s in Uganda, and they saw the transition. Yet, these organizations, NGOs, nonprofits are coming into Africa and saying, oh, let us tell your story. We'll tell your story.
Absolutely.
Instead of showing you or teaching you how to tell your story.
Absolutely.
And that's the difference.
And that still happens. And it's just ingrained. It's entrenched even in our psyche where we have that colonial mentality.
Because it's oppression. Right. And so I was so careful. Now, this is taking a little bit tangent, but I was so careful that when I built this, that I was not going to be another NGO, another charity, another nonprofit that goes in and tells them, you want my support? Well, you got to do this, or you got to say this, or you got to be this. We meet the girls where they are.
Yes.
And then build them up to where they want to be. So if you want to be a journalist, great. I'm going to show you how to be a journalist. You want to work in communications? I'm going to teach you how to write better using Grammarly.
And because there are all these barriers, the financial barriers that they have to overcome,
everything.
Everything.
But the patriarchal, right? Even then, the patriarchal, where the girls are told, no, you can go and take this 4-day workshop with cameras for girls, but you're not doing the year-long workshop because I'm not paying for it. I'll pay for them, right? To finish.
Oh.
I had one girl who finished the 4-day workshop. So I'll go into the structure later. She finished the 4-day workshop with us. And then she emailed me and said, my dad won't let me come to training anymore because he doesn't want to pay for the transportation or for me to get to editing. I said, great. How much do you need a week? Let's put it into my budget and I'll make that work. She finished and now she's a working journalist.
Oh, Amina, these are the stories of impact.
That's it.
I know there's a lot that went into this. It sounds quite simple. You helped her, but there's a simplicity to it in the sense where you gave her access to education. You empowered her with those tools. And now her economic standing has completely changed.
Absolutely, because it's a ripple effect.
Her children's economic, educational, health,
her family, her community, it's ripple effect. I'm going to go and correct you on one word, which I hate. It's empower.
I love that.
I use empower.
Absolutely.
You've already got the power
You
within.
don't have it. There's a lacking.
I'm there just to develop it and bring it out.
Yes.
Build it up and bring it out of you. I'm going to empower you.
Yes. But I will make you strong.
And you're already strong. You've got it. You just need somebody to open the door, right? And that's what I'm trying to do.
I'll be very honest. I've been in the development space for over 25 years. And empower is that's the jargon.
Exactly.
So thank you for that education. Empower. I love
empower. Yeah. So I changed it even on our website where it says empower. I say, we empower. And people are like, what is that? I'm like, well, you know what I mean? And so ethical storytelling frames our work. And I teach the girls about ethical storytelling. And let me go a little bit into that, is that when there are women out in community with a camera, which is usually a male thing that you would see, not only does ethical storytelling keep them safe, but it empowers the person that they're interviewing because it's participatory, meaning they are now asking the person that they are wanting to take a photo of or write a story about, what is it that you want people to know? How do you want to be represented? Is it you want to be called a beneficiary, or do you want to be called by your name and by who you are, a mother, a banker, a farmer, whatever it is. You give the power back to them of how they want to be represented. Then it coins up with informed consent. So we've all seen photographers, and I'm guilty of this from the past. Here's my consent form, just sign it and let's go. Informed consent is when you go to that person and you say to them, I have this consent form. I'm going to read it in your language of understanding. And if you don't speak their language, you're getting a guide or a translator to work with you so that they understand every single word you're reading to them. They have the right to ask questions. You're telling them where their photos or their stories are going to be shared. Are they going to be sold? Are they going to be on your website, social media? Are they going to benefit in any way?
Amina, anything short of that is exploitation.
That's it, right? And so we practice it, but we also teach them to practice it. And so when they're giving monthly assignments back, the question becomes, where's your consent form, right? And if you don't have it, why don't you have it?
Yes.
Did they refuse to sign it or did you not present it?
Yeah.
Right? Because what it's going to arm is like a little army of women now going out to tell stories of their communities,
Yes.
their own stories, their people's stories in their words, rather than that colonial lens of, well, I think this is your story. I'm just going to document it this way. And I bring this point home with an exercise I did with an American organization 2 years ago in a refugee settlement in northern Uganda. And they kept on telling the same kinds of stories because they were serving their donors' needs, or what they thought were the donors' needs, to see despair. We've all seen it. The child on a dirt floor, or half naked, dirty, poverty porn.
Yes.
So I taught them the right way and the wrong way. During the day, this young girl, actually, she was 12, a Sudanese refugee, was in school being supported by this organization, uniform, clean, happy, joyful, laughing and talking with her friends. We went back to the refugee settlement where she changed into her one torn rag of a dress and dirty, and you could see just the mask fall from her face. And I said, now, if you are coming back from that or there and here to this refugee settlement, and you're not asking her any questions, or you're not asking her how she wants to represent herself and her people and her community, and what she's going through, you are not ethically storytelling. You are now, doing shame and despair rather than hope, which it could still be hope. It's how you take the images, how you tell the story, what she wants you to share, what she doesn't want you to share. And it changed the game for them, right?
Through Cameras for Girls, Amina is reshaping the media industry in Uganda, Tanzania, and South Africa by breaking down gender-based barriers in journalism. By providing photography, writing, and business skills, she's equipping young women with the tools to secure jobs in male-dominated fields. But her work goes beyond training. Amina fosters ethical storytelling, leadership, and sustainable change. With over 80% of graduates securing paid work, her vision is clear: empowering women to tell their stories.
You have organizations, the UN, National Geographic, they go into these, communities. Is there like a protocol, all of these protocols, all of these considerations around you're in a community? Here's a guide to how you should engage with them.
Actually, Africa No Filter, an organization, they are doing a fantastic job of trying to get these organizations to follow this. And War Child Canada, War Child Uganda, they're doing a fantastic job. UNICEF is doing much better with this.
Excellent.
Right? So I think it's slowly rolling out.
And it's just also education.
It is.
Sensitization.
That's it, right? And just when you learn something new, you don't keep it to yourself. Make sure everybody else knows, because it's going to change the storytelling for the better, rather than, oh, well, they're not doing this, that they are. And that division comes again.
You mentioned Africa No Filter. So they're already creating a community of practice. All these different people in this space are now following these, like this code of
That's
conduct.
Right.
And that's so important.
Yeah.
So, Amina, you've trained over 200 young women.
So 89 with cameras. 89 have received cameras. And people would say, only 89? It takes a lot for a camera. It's like almost $500, $600 per camera. Yeah. But then on our online learning hub, we've got over 700 girls coming from across Africa. And so let me break it down for you a little bit. So we have 3 programs. Our first program is our flagship, which is our year-long 4-phase program. Phase 1 takes place in the country over 4 days. For the first 3 days, we're giving that girl the camera to keep. We're showing her how to go from automatic to manual in 3 days. She is learning, and some of them have never touched, like you said before, never touched a camera before. And the growth is incredible in 3 days because they walk in, they can't even look me in the eye. By the 3rd day, they're hugging and laughing, and they're looking at their images, and they're like, I'm doing this. On the 4th day, we walk into community with a partner NGO. They usually try to find an NGO who has the same SDGs or similar SDG, or at least is working with SDGs to showcase what they're doing. But it works where we ask them, who are you working with? Who are the young women or the men that you're working with? We want to come in as an organization, teach our girls ethical storytelling and practical photography skills. What you will get in the end is all the photos that they've taken, all the stories they're writing. What they will get is a start to their portfolio of work, right? So it becomes a beautiful marriage of sharing.
Yes.
So we've done Uganda and Tanzania so far.
Excellent.
We are going into, I'll tell you a little bit more, but we've done four cohorts in Uganda of 64 young women so far. Okay. In Tanzania, we've done 2 and we're up to 25. And in South Africa during COVID, we did 10. And I did that by sitting here and then a photographer in South Africa, and we worked in tandem. It was fantastic. And next year, Kenya will be our next expansion, and then so on and so forth.
Oh, I can't wait to hear more about how you're just scaling it. But I like that you've started Uganda, tested things out, and then you're scaling it. I would imagine that the training experience will vary from country to country.
It does, because it's cultural, which when I went from Uganda to Tanzania, I thought it was going to be the same, but it's very different. Very different. And you have to amend culturally. You have to work within the cultural norms. Back to the training, though. So it starts with the 4-day, and then after that, we transition online. I teach every Friday live on Zoom for 1 to 2 hours, or I have guests who teach about photography, storytelling, or business skills. So during phase 2, we're really immersing them into the photography and storytelling. Every month they have an assignment to do. Every 2 weeks they have to turn in photos showing me they're actually using the camera and, increasing their skills. And then phase 3, we jump into business skills, where we're actually teaching them, we're going to build your LinkedIn profile, but we're not just going to build it for you. You're going to build it. We're going to make it shine. And then we do business planning for those who want to get into a business. Like a lot of these girls come in and say, I want to be a journalist. Then they fall into love with photography and they're like, I want to go into photography. But going into photography, there's so many different ways to do it. If you don't have a business plan or know what your goals are, you're going to fail. So we do that with them. And then phase 4 is mentoring, because we've got over 80% of our graduates have full-time paid work in some part of male-dominated media, whether it's journalism, photojournalism, communications, PR, social media marketing, digital, whatever it is, right? They find their niche and they get it. And we also pair them with a mentor for 6 months, one-on-one, so that mentor, say they want to be a photojournalist, I pair them with a photojournalist who's come and gone and done it, because they can guide them, right? And then behind the scenes is our online learning hub. And this is where, if they can't make the live sessions, all of our video recordings sit in this hub. Everything, including documentation, including anything they need is sitting there. Course content, you name it. But now I've been able to open that up to any girl across Africa who has her old camera or her smartphone, who just wants to learn for free. She gets everything that these girls get except for a camera because we can't afford to just give them out.
So herein lies a lot of the challenges, I'm sure. Funding, how can people, anyone listening, how can we help?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. So it's a lot of grant writing, a lot, right? And I didn't come into this like knowing how to be a grant writer is things you have to learn. But working with amazing volunteers or consultants who could teach me the name of the game. And, it's hard. You apply for 10 grants, you might get one. It's a numbers game. This year, we got an incredible grant from Estee Lauder. So I was one of 4 awardees, the only North American to get it. And it's going to help me at this stage. We have a goal to launch 5 cohorts in Uganda next year. So to get there, we built a Train the Trainer program. And that Train the Trainer program is taking 5 young women who are graduates of our year-long program, upskilling them in advanced photography, advanced storytelling, imparting them with leadership skills and public speaking through Toastmasters.
Oh my goodness.
Because how can they stand in front of 15 of their peers if they're not able to speak?
Yeah.
African women teaching African women.
Oh,
that's the important part.
that's incredible.
Yeah. And so I'm super excited, but the challenges remain funding because we don't get government funding. And, we're trying to build a monthly donor program. And next year, we're going to work on a membership so that, anybody who wants to learn photography or wants to learn more about our program, join us as a member. Yes, you pay, but you get a tax receipt if you're in Canada, right? So it's a win-win.
Yes. I just have to commend you on the work you're doing with, Camera for Girls. We certainly will encourage our audience to just, check out your website, your social media, and how we can support you. So what we're doing is just getting the word out. This is good work.
Thank you.
And my father would say, this is God's work. And you're one of the so many unsung heroes. People are just doing the work. You're not doing it for any kind of publicity or any kind of recognition. You saw a significant gap. You're just using your love of photography, empower those who need it the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how these women take what I give them, learn from it, and then go into their communities and empower other young women and say to them that you too can do this, right? Just with a lot of hard work. And it's doable, right?
Amina, thank you. But before we finish, there's something we like to do from time to time. It's our rapid fire questions. I'll give you 2 words.
Yes.
And just pick instinctively one of the words. Yeah? Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Photography or filmmaking?
Photography.
Canon or iPhone?
iPhone. And I should say Canons because we use Canons, but no, I'm a Fuji shooter.
Okay, last one. Uganda or Canada?
Uganda.
All the way. Mina, I will check in with you certainly soon to see how you guys are doing and keep the incredible work going. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're very welcome.
Amina Mohamed's journey is proof that purpose is often found in unexpected places. Through Cameras for Girls, she's equipping young women in Uganda, Tanzania, and South Africa with storytelling and photography skills to access opportunities. But Amina's work isn't just about training. It's about redefining who gets to tell the story. She rejects the colonial mindset that often dominates media, uplifting women to share their narratives with dignity, agency, and authenticity. Cameras for Girls is a movement that extends beyond skills. It's about impact. With mentorship, business training, and a Train the Trainer model, Amina is creating a pipeline of women leaders and changemakers who will shape the future of media with a camera in hand. The power of storytelling belongs to everyone.
Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay curious and keep believing in the power of your voice. This is Awele Okibo, signing off for Credo Voices.